Why do bad bosses exist and how do you deal with them? In this video, I want to cover why so many bad bosses exist, the type of bad bosses, and how to deal with them. I want to make this video for two reasons. The first is to share the lessons I learned along the way, and the second is to inspire future leaders. So I have been in the game for a while. I've been with many bad bosses, and I've been with many good ones. The bad ones tend to want to make me pull my hair out, and the good ones makes me feel warm inside and continue to want to be motivated and do the work that I do. So if you're currently working with a bad boss, I am truly sorry. And if you're currently working with a great one, congratulations. But you should know how to handle bad bosses anyway, because next time you might not be as lucky. And if you're looking to become one, management, for the love of God, please don't be a bad one. So let's address why do so many bad bosses exist. The first reason is the Peter principle. Peter principle, if you have never heard of it, means that in the hierarchy, every employee tends to rise to their level of incompetency. So what that means is that, let's take the example of being a sales manager. You are a great salesman and you close a lot of sales. Therefore, the management recognizes your potential and raise you up. And instead of become a sales manager, you now become a people manager, managing about 10 to 20 people. The downside is that just because you're great at sales doesn't mean that you're great with being managing people, because the two actually requires a lot of different skills. Sales require a lot of power and influence and about convincing other people to your point of view. People manager has a lot more to do with dealing with different types of personality as well as process and operation management. Again, just because you're good with one doesn't mean that you're good with the other. And sometimes a great salesman can become a bad people manager. And the second reason is the lack of proper training. Even bosses need training, and in the professional world, we call it a leadership program. The example is, as a management consultant, when you become an individual contributor, you work 70 to 90 hours a week because that is what is expected of you. You can do that because you're a young 20-year-old that has no life outside of work. However, when you become a people manager, say a managing director, you might consistently expect all of the people around you to work 70 to 90 hours a week in order to deliver the same output. Just because you have done it consistently doesn't mean that that is the most optimal way to spend time, nor does it mean it's the optimal way to deliver an outcome. But, people needs to be told that and people needs to be trained on that. So now that we have covered the two reasons why there are so many bad bosses exist, due to Peter principle and due to lack of training, I want to briefly mention what are the type of the three bad bosses that I have experienced. The first one is a micromanager, the type that claims that nothing will be done or nothing will be done right if he or she is not there. This is problematic because, especially in a large-scale organization where everyone must function succinctly, a micromanager tends to be the bottleneck because without he or she, the necessary critical step might not get accomplished. And once the he or she is become a bottleneck, it eventually delay everyone else's work, cause the project not to be delivered on time. The second type is the my way or the highway bosses. These type of bosses are not necessarily, they could be quite pleasant to deal with in life. However, at work, they can be quite inflexible. These are the type of manager that tend to resist innovation, as well as innovative thoughts. So the example that I keep coming back on is I once have a manager that refuses to use Excel, even when it comes to, large-scale calculation. This is the type of manager that insists that I do all the calculations on a piece of paper. So not even 80s technology, 60s technology. Quite frustrating. The third type of bad bosses is the credit stealer, the one that takes all of your credit but lets you take all of the blame. This is my least favorite. Now that we have covered the three types of bad bosses, I want to briefly mention what it means and how it makes you feel when you're working with a great boss. In my opinion, it actually feels like a functional marriage. Don't get me wrong, don't marry your boss. Let's not get weird here. But working with a great boss should feel like you're working with a great partner. You feel warm, supported, motivated, and inspired. There will be tough times for sure, but you might want to get up and do it all over again. And thank God that every minute that you have, you are devoting your professional life with your trusted partner, the one that can go to battle with you every single time. So, getting back to dealing with bad bosses, what do you do with them? So, there are step-by-step approach. Step one is to acknowledge reality, acknowledging the fact that you're dealing with a less than ideal situation, but start by being brutally honest with yourself. Is your boss truly a bad one, or are you to blame for at least some of the situation? When you say that you're working from home, are you truly devoted 100% of the effort? What are you a truly dependable partner and a team member when your bosses needs you the most? Step 2. Assess your tolerance level. If you have determined that your boss is a significant source of the problem, then you have to evaluate your willingness to tolerate the situation. I once tolerated a job that is actually in a very toxic situation for over 2 years. It wasn't until that I have left the position that I realized the psychological trauma that you have created. So, how do you tolerate a situation? How do you evaluate a situation? The first decision is, are you willing to stay or are you going to leave? What does staying in this current job looks like for the next 10 months? Can you tolerate it? What does leaving look like? What skills have you accumulated in your current job that will at least make you valuable for the next current role? Take your time. Don't rush your decision. Leaving a job can be a significant life-changing event, so you have to approach it carefully and calmly. Do not make any impulse decision. I once almost made one after a particularly poor conversation. I eventually told my manager that I am going to quit right away. Thank God I had a mentor that talked me out of it. And instead of quitting immediately, I began to take it calmly and carefully, eventually prevented the fact that I would have been 40% salary reduced. I was able to land a job relatively quickly and to my desire. So what do you do if you choose to stay? How do you make the work environment tolerable? The first thing is you must find allies and influencers. And instead of engaging a direct conflict with your boss, don't do that. Identify the individuals within your organizations that your boss trusts and like. What I'm essentially is saying is let's influence your boss around it instead of engaging in a direct conflict. You might also want to consider give your boss another chance. Ask yourself, at the time of the disagreement, is your boss under a lot of stress? Is he or she genuinely a good leader, or are you just getting off into the wrong foot? Since you have sort of decided to stay, it doesn't hurt to wipe the slate clean and restart and give your boss another chance. While you are staying in the current role, don't ever stop learning. Sometimes it's the bad boss that can teach you the most. One of the worst bosses that I have ever dealt with taught me a lot of the on-the-job knowledge because while he is not a good people leader, he does have a lot of individual contributor skills. And by learning to deal with him on a daily basis, I was not only be able to accumulate people management skills, managing up, but I was also able to learn a lot on the job. And the final thing is document and seek alignment. So if all things have failed, if your effort to improve the situation did not get anywhere, then I am truly sorry. You have to prioritize documentation. What I mean by that is you should probably put everything in writing, including any disagreement and conflicts. In this case, it's more about leaving a trail of documentation and to prove to HR or other interested party that this has been going on for a while. In this case, in the documentation, you use clear and concise communication so that you can continue to seek alignment and resolution across all of the functional organizations. Unfortunately, bad bosses are more common than we like. But besides not becoming one, your goal should be to work with them to the best of your abilities. And when the opportunity arises, go get yourself a better job. If you find this content helpful, check out this video where I talk about how to survive at a Fortune 500 company as an individual contributor. Talk to you next time. Thanks.